Hey everybody. Today we're going to do another around the world update, but it is probably going to actually wind up being an around the world before and after, so I'll try to move quickly on this first go around because I'm going to do a lot of tank maintenance today, and that's the whole point of this video. This is my 29-gallon miscellaneous tank, and not a lot going on in there, no changes being made really today. It's just due for a water change. You can see how low the water level's getting from the top. If you watch my videos regularly, you know I don't really like that gap between the water level and the top of the tank. So that gives you a pretty good idea of how long it's been since I've done a water change. So this is just getting a simple water and filter change today, and then we'll get a nice look at it afterwards. You'd be surprised at how much tannins accumulate in that tank. I do have wood in there. It's not a lot, but it is some. I have this piece back here that is wood. I have it supported by a little piece of metal wire that I have hooked over the back of the tank, and then I've got some Java growing on it. I've got that piece of wood down there, which is fairly large, and then I also have this piece of wood here, which is fairly large. So there's a decent amount of wood in the tank, and despite having been in this tank for well over a year now, some of that wood's been in there for almost 2 years, it still leaches quite a bit of tannins into the tank. So that's just going to get a nice water change, and you'll see how clear that looks when we're all done. So we'll do a little before and after on this tank, and then we will go around and we'll do some before and afters on all the other tanks. So the next one we're going to look at is my Gourami tank. This one is in dire need of a lot of work. I just did a water change recently, so it doesn't really need that per se, but since I'm going to be in there working, it's, it doesn't hurt me to throw the hose in there and drain some water out while I'm scrubbing the glass down. The filter itself needs to be changed. I have your standard 304B canister filter underneath. It's been about a month since I've changed it. I have heard horror stories of people leaving those things for months and months and months on end without doing water or filter changes. That is not how they work, ladies and gentlemen. They are canister filters. They're not meant to be just forgotten about. You can go about a month without worrying too much about it, but you really should get in there at least once a month and change out your filter material and put fresh stuff in there. All the stuff that's being pulled out of your tank is actually collecting in there, and just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not still decomposing and breaking down and adding all of those organics right back into your tank as it flows through. So you got to remember to do your tank maintenance and do your filter maintenance at least once a month. So today is going to be a day to do that. Since I'm doing it, I may as well do it on more than one tank. It's another day where I'm unable to work, unfortunately, so I may as well kill the afternoon by taking care of some of my fish tanks. This tank is the same deal. Nothing really going on specific today. I'm not really making any changes. This tank, it's just got a little bit more detritus lying down there on the bottom than I'm happy with. So I'm probably going to do a very minor water change on this tank into a 5-gallon bucket with my gravel vac, my hand vac. And the reason I use the hand gravel vac to do the actual vacuuming, and I use my big Aqueon, my 50-foot hose, I just don't get the suction on that long siphon hose, and I basically use that for draining and filling. And if I really want to get in there and do any kind of serious vacuuming, I use my little handheld vac into a bucket. So that's what I'm going to do today, and I'll just top off 5 gallons of water back in there, and that'll be a minor little 10% water change, and I'll get some of that filth cleaned up off the bottom. My T-bar tank today is going to be left completely alone. We got nothing going on here today. I have done a little bit of rearranging to the lighting on it, so we can go over that real quickly. I will be doing a video specifically about this lighting here very soon. I've just started a playlist about aquarium lighting, and this will make it on there eventually, or this tank will make it on there eventually. Again, for those of you who follow along, you know that I had those two fixtures like this one here, which was basically just a T8 tube that was 2 feet long, housed inside this big 3-foot plastic housing. So I got rid of one of them, and I added one of these very nice lights that I like a lot. I have a lot of these. They're Coralife, and they've got two T5 tubes in them that are both high output. One is a 6700K and one is a Color Max, which again I'm not going to get into explaining all that right now if you're not familiar with what all that means. The change that I made, however, is here. Let me sit down for a moment. We'll get a better look at what I'm talking about. I had the new fixture that I bought, the T5 fixture, I put in the back of the tank, and I had the cheap fixture up front. So what that did essentially was light the back of the tank bright, and then the front of the tank was fairly dim. So you saw the plumbing, you saw the hardware, and when the fish did what they're doing now and swam front and center like this, instead of swimming under this nice bright beautiful light, it was actually swimming around under that very inadequate lighting from that little T8 tube. So it really gave me the completely backwards wrong effect. So by simply switching them around and putting the brighter light up front and the better light up front, the higher quality lighting up front, and the dimmer, lower quality lighting in the back, I achieved several things. For one, the T-Bar's house is in the back. He's got a little burrow dug out underneath that filter you see in the back left corner. That is a UV sterilizing filter. And he has a little shallow area dug out back there that's quite clearly his house. And he doesn't like it brightly lit. So by putting that tube in the back, that gives him a little more subdued lighting for his house. It also gives you, the viewer, the sense of distance. It gets darker as you look off into the distance, just like it would if you had stuck your head underwater and were looking off into the distance. You know, you've got a limited sight distance and it just fades to darkness. So it achieves a little of that effect, having the lower lighting in the back of the tank versus the front of the tank. And then, of course, I already mentioned it, you know, when the fish swim up front and center like that, you get the really magnificent coloration and everything really stands out on them. So that's all that I've really done on this tank here in the past week or so. Nothing going on as far as, you know, update-wise other than that. This tank has been updated a little bit recently. I've got a new light on top. Well, I say new, I'll say different is a better word. And yes, I'm well aware that this poor fish in there is dying. He's got a bad broken swim bladder and basically has to keep moving to stay up off the bottom and stay, you know, respirating. So that's just a matter of time. He's been in there for about 2 weeks like that. So I've seen fish live quite a long time in that condition. So I'm just going to let nature take its course and let him do its thing. Although I do admit it's a little unpleasant to see. Sometimes that really kind of bothers me watching him swim around like that. But, you know, it is what it is. So this light is very clearly a homemade, something I slapped together out of an old unit. But it does achieve the effect I wanted, where we are able to sit here and not be blinded by the glare that comes off of that old fixture I used to have. So again, I know it doesn't look magnificent, but it gets the job done, and it allows me to have two T5 high output 6500K lights on this tank, which gives me a beautiful light and does wonders for all the plants that are in there. So that's all that's really going on with this tank. Excuse me. This tank is the one that we are going to be doing the most talking about here in the very near future. For one thing, I have to say I have a very, very generous viewer, I will just say overseas, who has generously sent me some money so that I can get a new lighting fixture for Butterbean's tank. He said that he just felt he loves Butterbean so much, he just wanted to see him have proper lighting so we can all see him better. So everybody, when I get my new light for Butterbean, you can all thank my viewer for donating money for that cause. I'm beside myself with gratitude. I can't believe he's kind enough to do that. So I've already got my eye on a light. I think I'm going to go with an LED on this tank this time, just for something different, so I can see the difference between an LED versus the T5 fixture. So this will also give me a little bit of a chance to, you know, gain some new experiences. So that'll be coming up real soon. He also asked me if I would do a video about enrichment. I was actually planning on doing a video about enrichment, and that's where this whole conversation got started, because the figure 8 puffers, and all puffers really, are fish that need enrichment. They're very intelligent fish, and if you don't have proper enrichment in their tank, they suffer for it. So I was actually going to do a video about that anyway, and whenever I've got time to actually prepare a little bit for a video, I like to do a little bit of research and find out, you know, what's going on, make sure I got my ducks in a row before I go start talking about it. I'm really surprised everybody's just laying so low here while I'm standing here in front of the tank talking about it. But But while I was doing this research about enrichment and just getting my sort of P's and Q's in order, I actually wound up learning quite a few things that had never occurred to me before. A lot of things about enrichment and simple ways that you can do it, but more importantly, I learned about the different variety of fish and how important it is for enrichment pretty much in all fish. And the real whammy doodle that I found out, and this goes for all my friends out there that like the glass bare bottom tank, and they think that that's stark empty bare bottom tank is beneficial to the animal because you're able to keep the tank much cleaner. That may not necessarily be true. I've read some very interesting research regarding enrichment in tanks, even simple stock tanks. The difference between having a gravel substrate versus a bare glass substrate was very interesting. So for all of you that are interested in anything like that, or if you've got a bare glass bottom tank, you'll definitely want to catch up on that video. So if you're not already subscribed, do so, and you won't miss it. I don't really know when that video is going to be coming out specifically, but it will be very soon. Within the next few days, I'm going to be putting that together for you. So that's what's going on with this tank, and we will be doing that video. As I said, I shot video this morning of this tank. This is just my little snail tank, but it does once again have planaria in it, and I just cannot get rid of these. I actually drained the tank and sterilized it before when I had those Gouramis shrimp and the planaria in there that were just eating my snails, and they were eating my shrimp, and they were just killing off everything in the tank. So I completely wiped the tank out, completely sterilized it, started it over. I went from having it, a bare bottom tank with nothing in it to actually putting some substrate and some plants in there, and lo and behold, planaria came back. And they came back in force. So I actually dumped about 3 or 4 ounces of hydrogen peroxide in there about a month ago in an attempt to sterilize it. I expected it to kill everything. It didn't. It didn't kill the plant, it didn't kill all of the snails, and it didn't kill the planaria that was in there, because I saw one again this morning on the glass. They're back. I've been doing some more reading on them. I shot a video about it. Very interesting. But I did actually redose this tank with hydrogen peroxide. And one of the things I didn't mention in that other video was I never did a water change. I put the hydrogen peroxide in there and then I just let it ride. That was over a month ago, and I still haven't done a water change. So this morning, after seeing that, and in fact about 20 minutes ago, and you can already see the bubbles starting to rise in there, I dosed about 3 or 4 more ounces of hydrogen peroxide in there just to see what I can do, to see if I can't wipe those planaria out. At this point, it's more of an experiment than an actual attempt to accomplish anything. So I'll be updating you on that in the near future as well. So there's another little teaser for some video coming up. This is my 40 breeder that is still just sitting there waiting for something to happen to it. This is actually the light fixture that I had over my open top 20 that was so blinding and glaring. I actually just sort of swapped it for the light fixture I had sitting on top of here. Again, it doesn't look as good over where it is now. Talking about this one here, does not look as good, but it actually works a lot better for me shooting video and not having reflection and glare and things like that. So that's why this fixture is over here now. This tank is still waiting. I still, honestly, everybody, don't know what I'm going to do with this. So this one's just kind of on the back burner right now. Be patient, we'll get to it. My 125 is looking as beautiful as ever. My congos are in there spawning again this morning. I swear they do it every day or two. They're just always in there spawning. They're like rabbits, or guppies. You can see I'm getting all this growth on the glass, and not surprisingly, the growth is mostly on this end of the tank where I have this twin T5 core life unit, just like the one we just looked at on my T-bar tank. And on this side I just have one of those little 18-inch T8 tubes, and you can see there is some growth on the glass in front of it, but not nearly as much because it's not nearly as much lighting. So that, if anything else, while it may show you that excess lighting will also cause excess algal growth, it definitely gives you a very visual idea of the difference between putting cheap lighting versus good lighting on your aquarium. I'm a real stickler for lighting. I've said this before. I can go on and on about lights and lighting. There's a lot more to lighting your aquarium than just making it able to be seen. So we'll get into that again in my aquarium lighting playlist that we'll have here coming up in the future. So just take a good look at this tank. It's my 125, as I said, and it's just getting its first real water change today. I know I did a bunch of water changes while I was cycling it in, but that process has long been over and I haven't done a water change since. So today is going to be its first actual water change. The only maintenance I've done on this tank since it finished cycling in was I've been in there and I've wiped the glass down because it was already getting a lot of this growth before. And so now this is the second batch of this growth that I need to get out of there. So I'm clearly going to have issues with that in this tank. And, I'm just beginning to find out how this tank's going to roll on a daily basis once it sort of gets balanced and settled into its own routine. So today's its first big water change. I think you're going to be surprised at how much more bright it is because there's a lot of tannins in this water as well. That wood there in the middle is from my Angelfish tank, and it's been underwater for, I don't know, a year and a half now. So it's not leaching tannins nearly at the rate it used to. But this piece is brand new. I just put this in when I set this tank up, and that's a fairly large chunk of wood. So that's actually still leaching tannins at a rapid rate. So we'll take one last little step here across the room. You can tell it's wintertime. I have my faux fireplace down here to keep me warm. And I got to get all the way back here so we can get that whole tank in, and we'll do the before and after on this tank as well. Alright everybody, there you go, there's your after. Makes quite a difference doing a massive water change like that, just pulling the tannins out of the water. Now I checked the nitrates when I was doing my change, and the nitrates were only at about, I'm going to say 30 to 35 parts per million maybe, so that was pretty good for how long it's been since I've done a water change on this tank. Now keep in mind, I'm trying to be a little more conservative with this tank as far as feeding and stocking. I'm trying to see if I can keep a tank a little more low on the organics to see how that works out for me. So I'm just going to go around the room and do some edits and give you a quick before and after on some of the tanks. I did 5 water changes and tank cleanings today, so enjoy the little before and after as the video wraps up, and I thank you for watching. If you're not already subscribed, please do so. As you can see, I've got a lot of fish tanks and a lot of stuff going on, so if you're subscribed you won't miss any of it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you real soon.